Air temperature is 0 degrees with a wind chill of 12 below at 6:09. 92.7 WMAY. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Patrick Pfingsten. On the 20th day of January in the year of our Lord 2025, it is Inauguration Day. It is MLK Day. It is the day that our constitutional republic goes up in flames. I was a real reporter back in the day, so I couldn't have like public feelings about an Obama inauguration, and I felt terrible about an Obama inauguration in January of 2009. It was a guy who was completely out of touch, who in my interactions with him had been incredibly negative. He was not a particularly nice guy, very arrogant, very holier than thou. I'm smarter than you country bumpkins from downstate. And just was not looking forward to 4 years of an Obama administration, or what turned into 8 years of an Obama administration. But certainly the crossroads that we're at today are at a brand new level. And we're streaming on YouTube. If you're watching this morning, I'm wearing an American flag cap because I care. I love my country. Love my country. But I'm certainly concerned about what's going to happen on day 1 through day 100 through 4 years. We have elected and are now inaugurating a sociopathic felon, habitual liar who has zero real conservative mooring to him. You know, I love that all the MAGAs out there love to think that I'm not the conservative because I don't support Donald Trump, even though I have a background of actually electing conservatives in the state. But hey, you know what? Don't let facts get in the way of your little narrative. The reality here is that I'm sure there will be people coming forward today and on your cable news and probably on this show at some point today too, and say we may disagree with him, but we're going to work with him. And don't take the tweets seriously and don't take the rhetoric seriously. Take the action seriously. Well, you just wait. If they're going to be separating families of DACA recipients or people who are in the country illegally and their children in Chicago beginning this week, we're going to see some serious hell blow up. It could get really ugly really fast. Not to mention, it's going to look unlike any inauguration we've seen since, was it 85, Reagan's 85 inauguration, as Trump will revel with supporters during the indoor inauguration ceremony. And he's going to publicly put foes on notice that he's wasting no time before remaking American governance in his orange-hued image. Trump becomes the 47th president at noon Eastern today. And his plans today and in the weeks that follow will surely show that he plans to use his executive power to thwart migrants, to cut a federal workforce he doesn't trust, as well as to end many Biden administration energy and climate policies he opposes, which isn't all bad. He told voters he'll ease inflation, end wars, close borders, and restore a mighty economy with tough tariffs, more oil drilling, and fewer regulations. Many of Trump's executive orders will be challenged in court by opponents who hope their resistance can galvanize what is certainly a dispirited Democratic Party and perhaps some of the moderate voters who opted for Trump over soon to be former Vice President Harris. Immigration enforcement will test that theory beginning today. The new Trump administration is eager for a showy start. There are reports out there that they're planning to conduct raids against illegal immigrants in Chicago as soon as tomorrow. He'll sign executive actions this evening geared towards strengthening border security. The question will be, is he going to walk into this as a lame duck on day one, or is he going to continue to do the little eyebrow raise? Maybe I'll run again, even though he really can't, but will do whatever the hell he wants to, because that seems to be no consequences anymore. Certainly conservatives and progressives will quickly, especially if Trump is treated as a lame duck right away, conservatives and progressives will start focusing on the midterm right away. Trump will try to steer narrow Republican majorities in the House and Senate to follow his lead, but he's going to run into legislative hurdles. There's no precedent in today's starkly divided Congress to accomplish in a single year or in a single bill the wide range of ambitious tax, immigration, and energy changes that Trump wants to make. And certainly the rest of the world is on the lookout. Trump, during his transition, injected himself into the ceasefire accord between Israel and Hamas, the war between Russia and Ukraine, which, by the way, he said he was going to solve in 24 hours. So he's got until noon Eastern tomorrow to figure that one out. And the battle involving TikTok and its Chinese parent company. Weeks before taking today's oath of office, Trump threatened to ally Canada with tariffs, knocked NATO and Denmark, and said Greenland and the Panama Canal should be controlled by the U.S. Nonetheless, today the red carpet rolls out. Trump's cabinet is going to require time to gear up. Senate confirmation votes will dominate Capitol Hill this week. At least one of his picks, former Democratic House member Tulsi Gabbard, selected to lead the Office of Director of National Intelligence, is struggling to explain her past support of Edward Snowden, who was charged with espionage and is living in exile in Russia. In 2020, Gabbard urged Trump to pardon Snowden. Senate Intelligence Committee awaits additional paperwork and has not scheduled a confirmation hearing yet for her. It feels like we're just going down the same road we went down 4 years ago, all over again. Chaos, lack of control of government, a bunch of crazies pushing an agenda. It seems so frustrating to me that Republicans couldn't figure out their own problems in the primary last year, whether it would have been Nikki Haley or some other Republican who stepped up. And certainly Democrats could have prevented this by Joe Biden getting his octogenarian self off the stage after the midterms and not waiting until July of this year and putting Kamala Harris in an impossible situation. I'm very down, very down on what to expect for the next 4 years. All right, we'll walk through the plan for the morning and get into some other stuff here. It's 619 92.7 WMAY. 0 degrees outside, 12 below. 621 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. We're under a cold weather advisory until noon today. It's going to be cold all day. Dangerous out there at the moment, but high gets up to 16. Wind chills between 2 below and 12 below throughout the day. We'll have winds around 20 miles an hour, so it'll be cold and windy, and it'll feel even colder through the day. Few flurries overnight. High tomorrow is just 7. Welcome to the deep freeze. And it's not even that cold in Washington that they moved, that they moved this indoors. Let's see. Washington D.C. weather today. Mostly sunny with a high of 24. It's 25 right now. That's weak. That's weak. Snowflakes. Wind chill is 13 at 7:20 in the morning there. They can do that. Well, what weaklings. We can get into that. We can certainly get into that some more because there's absolutely a reason that they moved this indoors. And it's not because of the weather. It's not because of the weather. Promise. All right, coming up on the show today at 6:49, we'll talk to our friend Tom LoBianco, who writes 24site.news, the great national politics newsletter. 7:19, a Democratic perspective from Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski. She'll join us from D.C. She was attending the inauguration before it got moved inside. We'll see if she's still going. 7:49 will be Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party. And at 8:19 is Richard Porter, a former Republican National Committeeman for Illinois, who is, if you believe the rumors, considering making a run for governor next year. So that and more coming up. But listen, if at 12:01 Eastern time we find out that Donald Trump has pardoned everyone convicted in the January 6th riot in the Capitol, my head's gonna just go poof. I'll lose it. Trump has vowed to pardon those who were convicted of January 6th related crimes in the first hour of his new term. It was previously just day one, but contra those who contend that Joe Biden invited this abuse of clemency by pardoning Hunter last month, Trump himself has suggested that when he launched his re-election bid back in 2022, he started even then with a promise of January 6th pardons, and it's become central to his campaign. What's left now is to speculate of how far Trump will actually go. Will he pardon those who assaulted law enforcement, who dragged officers down the stairs of the Capitol, beat them with baseball bats, bludgeoned their heads with fire extinguishers? Trump, absolutely I would, he said. What about the organizers of the violence convicted in seditious conspiracy, literal traitors like the Proud Boys? I'd certainly look at it, Trump said. Pardons for January 6th would mark the first time in American history that the leader of an insurrection pardoned insurrectionists. Globally, though, this brand of clemency is not original. For authoritarians, placing yourself and your supporters above the law is generally the point. But pardons establish a special pact between the pardoner and the pardoned. Early in his chancellorship, and I'm not doing the Trump is Hitler thing, okay? I'm just using the historical example. Hitler pardoned street fighting members of the Sturmenblang. I forget exactly how you say that. The SA, basically, the paramilitary wing of the Nazi Party who had been convicted of murder. In East Germany after the war, some SA were given pardons if they agreed to spy for the Stasi. Pinochet in Chile, Fujimori of Peru used blanket amnesties to protect their security forces. Mugabe in Zimbabwe pardoned hundreds of militants who carried out widespread election-related violence on his behalf. It's just there's a long list from Bolsonaro in Brazil to Viktor Orban to Erdogan in Turkey. The authoritarian effect on criminal enterprises is real. And Trump may yet only pardon nonviolent rioters who were in the Capitol that day, or maybe he'll pardon leaders and members of far-right paramilitaries who orchestrated the violence. Among those angling for a pardon is Enrique Tarrio, the former leader of Proud Boys, which is, if you haven't heard of if you don't know this yet, Proud Boys is a fascist militant group that was arguably the most important organizer of the January 6th attack. A former associate who testified at Terrio's trial said the organization's members took themselves to be the foot soldiers of the right. Terrio was convicted of, among other things, seditious conspiracy. Last month, his attorney released a statement applauding the recent election results, particularly the election of Donald Trump, and noted they look forward to what the future holds. An attorney for Joseph Riggs, another convicted Proud Boys leader, was more direct. Riggs, he said, should receive a complete pardon. Researchers have described a call and response relationship between Trump and paramilitary groups. The stand up and stand by stuff that we've heard from him. He leaves enough distance, uses enough key words to deny a relationship, but certainly uses the right words and enough communication to exercise influence. Stand back and stand by, right? What he said during the 2020 presidential debate. Terrio told congressional investigators that message to him was clear. I took it to be like, quote, hey, the election's coming up, stand by. According to another convicted Proud Boys leader, membership tripled after that debate. Trump's dangling of pardons has been another example. According to the Justice Department, by promising pardons, Trump is publicly signaling that the law does not apply to those who act at his urging, regardless of the legality of their actions. But actual pardons would establish a different relationship. Trump is indebted to these groups willing to take up arms on his behalf. In Trump, groups like the Proud Boys see a vehicle for the political project of stomping out this globalism, this pluralism. But many, including Terrio, who's a legitimately bad dude, were also quick to throw Trump under the bus during their trials, claiming it was his fault the January 6th happened. Proud Boys founder Gavin McInnes scoffs at the idea that Trump controls them. But pardons could help to shift that relationship. Pardonees would be indebted to him. And many more militants not currently behind bars would get the message. If you do something for the cause that gets you in trouble, Trump will protect you. That is a terrifying prospect. It's 6:30, time for the news on 92.7 WMAY. 6:38, 0 degrees, literally 0 degrees. Wind chill is 12 below this morning. Cold weather advisory through noon. It's going to be chilly all day. Hats, gloves, scarves, head, shoulders, knees, and toes, as we sing to our toddler. All right. It's going to get crazy now. President Biden has pardoned Dr. Anthony Fauci, retired General Mark Milley, and members of the House committee that investigated the January 6th attack on the Capitol, using his pardon powers in the final hours to guard against any potential revenge by the incoming Trump administration. The decision by Biden comes after Trump warned of an enemies list filled with those who have crossed him politically or sought to hold him accountable for his attempt to overturn his 2020 election loss and his role in storming the Capitol on January 6, 2021. This is an AP story, by the way. Trump has selected cabinet nominees who backed him and who backed his election lies and who have pledged to punish those involved in efforts to investigate him. The issuance of these pardons should not be mistaken as an acknowledgement that any individual engaged in any wrongdoing, nor should acceptance be misconstrued as an admission of guilt for any offense, Biden said in a statement. Our nation owes these public servants a debt of gratitude for their tireless commitment to the country. It's customary for a president to grant clemency at the end of his term, but those acts of mercy are typically offered to sort of the everyday person who's been convicted of a crime or got caught in a mandatory minimum or something like that. Or if you're Donald Trump, Rod Blagojevich, or his son-in-law's dad. Biden, other than maybe those Trump nominees or Trump pardons, is using his power in the broadest and most untested way possible. He's pardoning those who haven't even been investigated yet. And with that acceptance comes a tacit admission of guilt or even wrongdoing, even though those who've been pardoned have not been formally accused of any crimes. These are exceptional circumstances, and I cannot in good conscience do nothing, Biden said, adding that even when individuals have done nothing wrong and in fact have done the right thing and will ultimately be exonerated, the mere fact of being investigated or prosecuted can irreparably damage reputations and finances. Fauci was director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Institutes of Health for nearly 40 years and was Biden's chief medical advisor until his retirement in 2022. He helped coordinate the nation's response to the COVID-19 pandemic and raised the ire of Trump when he refused to back Trump's unfounded claims. He's become a target of intense hatred and vitriol on the right, who blame him for mask mandates. If you want to be mad at somebody for a mask mandate, talk to J.B. Pritzker. And other policies they believe infringed on their rights, even as tens of thousands of Americans were dying. Milley is the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and called Trump a fascist and detailed Trump's conduct around the January 6th insurrection. Biden is also extending pardons to members and staff of the January 6th committee, including former Congress members Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, both Republicans, as well as U.S. Capitol and D.C. Metropolitan Police officers who testified before the committee. Biden is an institutionalist, right? By the way, Adam Kinzinger, a friend of mine, as we've discussed on this show before, he said publicly he didn't want a pardon because he did nothing wrong and they can go after him if they want to. He and Liz Cheney probably in a little more comfortable financial situation than someone like a Cassidy Hutchinson, who has been persecuted on the right for testifying, or some of these DC Metro cops. Biden has promised a smooth transition to the next administration. He invited Trump to the White House, said the nation will be okay, even though he warned during his farewell address of a growing oligarchy. He spent years warning that Trump's ascension to the presidency again would be a threat to democracy, So his decision to break with political norms with preemptive pardons was seemingly brought on by those concerns. Biden has set a presidential record for most individual pardons and commutations issued. He announced on Friday he was commuting the sentences of almost 2,500 people convicted of nonviolent drug offenses. He previously announced he was commuting the sentences of 37 of the 40 people on federal death row, converting their punishment to life imprisonment just weeks before Trump, a proponent of expanding capital punishment, takes office. In his first term, Trump presided over an unprecedented spate of executions, 13 in a protracted timeline during the coronavirus pandemic. Listen, I don't like this because it implies that these people did something wrong. And Mark Milley and Anthony Fauci and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney and Cassidy Hutchinson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, they did nothing wrong. A pardon or feeling the need to pardon them implies that they did something criminal, which they most certainly did not. I mean, I'm torn on this because the historical comparison is Gerald Ford pardoning Nixon, right? But Nixon had been investigated. Nixon had been close to impeachment and was certainly going to face federal charges after he left office. So this is really uncharted territory. I mean, obviously now the Trump people can say, I mean, I think the Trump people can just say, all right, well then they committed a crime outside of this window and we're going to investigate them for it and just try and make their life hell. I mean, it looks good on paper. I just don't know that it actually helps at all in the execution. 646 92.7 WMAY. 650 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Pfingsten here. Pleasure to have you with us on Inauguration Day. We're going to hit that pretty heavy this morning, as you can imagine. Our friend Tom Lobianco, who writes the great newsletter 24sight, joins us. Tom, how are you? Good morning.
Patrick, happy Inauguration Day.
How are you, bud? Is it happy? Is it really happy?
Happy, joy.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Well, I'll get into your day. I want to first get your reaction to the announcement this morning that President Biden is offering these blanket pardons to essentially anyone who might be targeted by the Trump administration, whether it be Fauci, Mark Milley, my friend Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, etc. We knew he was thinking about it, but I kind of didn't think he was going to go through with it at this point.
Interesting, right? Kind of a last minute parting shot from somebody who has variously been described as incapacitated, dementia-addled, but also a dictator, sometimes by the same people, depending upon how they describe President Biden. I think that if you look at Biden's actions, and they'll be meeting today at it's a traditional tea that typically happens between the departing president and the incoming president.
Trump's totally having Diet Coke though, right? Not tea.
Yeah. Last time he skipped it because he was freezing on the tarmac out at JVA Andrews at a departure that about 20 people showed up to after he attempted an overthrow of the government and failed. So that did not happen last time. So this will be their first tea on Inauguration Day. So they'll have a lot to discuss. I mean, look, Trump threatened that he would do this. And whether you take that to be seriously or literally, there's no reason not to. I think Trump's actions are indicative that, even if his team cannot find any criminal charges, and I have not seen any evidence, they have not presented any evidence that anything that Mark Milley did, that Fauci did, that Cheney or Kinzinger, people that conducted the January 6th, the people that protected the Capitol and the country on January 6th, that any of that was somehow illegal. They have not presented any evidence of that. But what they can do is Trump and his the new Trump federal government can conduct investigations, which become expensive. And we're already starting to see some of that. You see that with these private defamation suits that have been filed by Trump's lawyers against former Mike Pence National Security Advisor Olivia Troy. That suit was filed by one of Trump's top longtime lawyers, and she's being defended by one of the Democratic Party's longtime lawyers, Mark Said. So that's the kind of warfare that we're already starting to see from Trump. So I think in that context, it makes absolute sense that Biden would do this, whether or not the people being pardoned wanted those pardons.
Tom Lobianco of 24sight.news also co-hosts a podcast with me called The Ground Game here on 92.7 WMAY. All right, you were supposed to be on the mall today. I assume you and you East Coast sissies don't have to stand out in the cold today, like us hardened Midwesterners, where it's 0 degrees out right now, and we can take it. We're tough. But sun-kissed Floridians and stuff can't handle a little breeze.
My poor Ravens. My Ravens.
Mark Andrews, cold never bothered him anyway until last night.
Oh, no, man. No, we just, you get to the Mid-Atlantic And once it starts getting over like 2 or 3 inches, things start getting sloppy. Um, we're not Vermonters, okay? I know everybody in the rest of the country thinks that I-95 is one big megalith of pasteurized or non-pasteurized milk and organic everything and Subarus as far as the eye could see. But Bernie Sanders only represents that part up next to Canada. Okay, the rest of us are pretty middling. Yeah.
But what are they? But
I
what are
was
they
going to
doing?
be
What are
there.
they doing with the media? I mean, like obviously they're not going to shove all those risers into the rotunda. There's simply not enough
No,
room.
no,
So did you
no. We
did
all
you
get a
lose
pull
your
feed.
Did you lose your
I
credential then?
did.
Okay,
I did. They yanked it.
that's lame.
It is. It is lame. I was like, but I'm a national network. Technically, we're all national networks.
The National Substack Network, where he writes 24site.news. All right, so this is the question I've been asking since we did our little pre-election live stream last week
Mm-hmm.
of is this going to be American Carnage Trump, or is this going to be I love everyone and we're here to change the world Trump? I don't know what Trump we're going to get today.
I think it's going to be American Carnage.
With a little panache.
Right. It's going to be Susie Wiles and the establishment career staff being like, well, this is the way things work, and this is how we do it, and we want to make sure he's fed well so that he's not hangry. And these will be the raids that are happening, and everybody sits around the table and takes notes and reports that. And then they do exactly the same stuff he wanted to do before, but with the veneer of establishment language, syntax, and whatnot.
I mean,
So
but Susie
I think
Wiles
that's
isn't a
what we're going to see.
speechwriter. I mean, Stephen Miller writes most of his stuff, and Stephen
Yeah,
Miller's
but
as crazy as they come.
she translates it. She translates it into Washington speak, and has done very well at it. Frankly, I mean that is the single biggest change in that operation, and it's why he won. It's why you've seen, I've been fascinated to look at all the outlets, the news outlets, my colleagues who I've been reading for years, and the tone and the language has changed on a dime. Politico Playbook has a Brit writing it now. If you want to see the change in tone, Jack Blanchard, is the new editor for Playbook, and it's an interesting read this morning. Um, so there's been a lot of change in how people the actions are the same, but the way they're talked about are very different, and that's intentional. Which I would argue, regardless of where you stand, whether you support Trump or whether you support Biden and Harris, that is it's good political work. Right, that's very good political staff work and a testimony to their ability to control the levers of power. So I would expect as this term that they're starting to use now, MAGA light, which some people might refer to as what used to be called the Republican Party. So that's what I'm listening for today.
All right, what are you writing at 24 site today?
Well, folks, head on over. So we'll have columnist Michael Cohen, pollster, not the lawyer, has a look ahead coming up this morning at immigration, what to expect with that. Come on over to the 24 site to the live video. Patrick and I are doing a live stream after Trump was sworn in. So swing on by. We'll have a couple special guests for you.
Can I swear there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. Can't do that here. But I'm going to need to.
Are you kidding me? You can't?
All right, check out Tom's stuff at 24site.news. Tom, appreciate it as always, and we'll have a new podcast tomorrow as well. 7 o'clock here
Awesome.
on 92.7 WMAY in Springfield. The air temperature is 0 at 7:10. Wind chill is 11 below. 92.7 WMAY. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to Springfield's Morning News. I'm Patrick Pfingsten. It's Inauguration Day. Donald Trump and his red hat wearing crew occupy 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue as of noon Eastern Time today. Hold on to your hats. Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski scheduled to join us in about 8 minutes to talk about perspective on what to expect from Trump 2 from her side of the aisle. We'll have some Republican response later on in the 7 o'clock hour. We'll have Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party. 8:19, we'll have Richard Porter, who is the former RNC National Committeeman for Illinois. He's an attorney, recently retired attorney from up in the Chicago area, and also rumored to be running for governor. We might ask him about that. Though we are focused on the inauguration this morning. So apparently Trump is planning a string of executive orders during his first days in office, including one to strip job protections from career civil servants. His top policy advisor told Republican members of Congress yesterday. In a phone call with a few dozen Republicans yesterday, Stephen Miller, Trump's tiny little fascist incoming Homeland Security advisor and deputy chief of staff overseeing policy in the gulags, laid out broad strokes of what Trump is planning on energy, immigration, and federal workers. The call was reported earlier by the website Punchbowl and confirmed by two people briefed on the conversation. Trump spokesperson did not respond. Trump has indicated he plans to sign roughly 100 executive orders in the initial days of his presidency, with a number coming within hours of him being sworn in today. Among them are substantial actions to reshape the federal bureaucracy's workplace rules, which are in line with various promises Trump made on the campaign trail. Miller described, while providing few details, executive orders to undo actions taken by President Biden to institute diversity, equity, and inclusion, measures in federal agencies, and to roll back protections for transgender people receiving some government services. Mr. Trump also plans to reinstate an order he issued during his first term to create a new category of federal workers known as Schedule F that would lack the same job protections enjoyed by career civil servants who are supposed to be hired according to merit and cannot be arbitrarily fired. That would allow his administration to shift a large number of federal workers into a new status over which it could keep a much tighter rein, including the ability to hire and fire them more easily. The order is significant as Trump and Miller have deep hostility toward large portions of the federal bureaucracy, which Trump often derisively calls the deep state. Trump is also planning a string of orders related to energy policy, much of which arise from pledges to encourage offshore drilling and end the electric vehicle tax credit, as well as stop spending on Biden's climate policies. And on immigration, Trump is planning to designate drug cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, which, again, as much as I dislike him, I don't hate that idea. Declaring a border emergency and allowing him to go around Congress and surge money and potentially military resources toward the border, and declare a public health emergency to essentially seal the border, as the administration did during the coronavirus pandemic. He also expected to curtail asylum grants and step up detentions and deportations. Miller, the tiny little fascist, has been leading the executive order process throughout the transition, aiming for as much secrecy as possible and only opening the lens just a little bit at a time so the various agency heads could see some of the work. He's been using a team of lawyers to vet them. At his rally at Capital One Arena yesterday afternoon, Trump told the crowd the executive orders would make them extremely happy. He doesn't have any idea what he's signing. Said he had beaten back efforts by some advisors to delay his day one executive orders, saying he wants to give the country a massive first day and first week in office filled with activity. Trump also said he plans to quickly release the classified files related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. And he previewed coming clemency grants for people convicted in connection with the attack on the Capitol by a pro-Trump mob on January 6, 2021. He has continued to refer to those people who are federal convicts who tried to overthrow the government as hostages. And if you hadn't heard, President Biden, on his way out the door this morning, has issued pardons, preemptive pardons for Dr. Anthony Fauci, the longtime government scientist, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley, as well as members and staff on the House committee, the bipartisan House committee that investigated the January 6th attacks, including former Congresswoman Liz Cheney and my friend, former Congressman Adam Kinzinger from Illinois. That he's going to, or that Biden is preemptively pardoning them so that the Trump administration can't target them. But one of the new senators, Jim Banks from Indiana, who I actually know a little from when he was a member of the state Senate in Indiana, said Mark Milley might be pardoned, but we will continue to explore ways to hold him accountable. They're going to keep looking for ways to do this. I mean, this pardon may help, but it certainly seems like they're going to try and find ways around it. 717 92.7 WMAY. Seven 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Pfingsten here on Inauguration Day. Donald Trump becomes the once and former and again president We'll have some Republican reaction to everything happening today coming up with Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party, and Richard Porter, former Republican National Committeeman for Illinois. First, though, we'll get some Democratic perspective with Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski, a Democrat from Springfield who comes to us from Washington. How are you, Congresswoman?
I am doing well.
Thanks.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking us some time. I
Sure.
guess so your colleagues in the Illinois delegation kind of mixed on whether to attend the inauguration or not. A majority, I think the Sun-Times said this morning, we're not planning to attend, notwithstanding the weather and things getting moved to the rotunda, which I think you'll still be in there if you're allowed.
Yep.
Why are you going and some of your colleagues aren't?
Well, I can just speak for myself. I mean, I'm going because I believe in the peaceful transfer of power. I'm showing up out of respect for the office of the presidency. Whether I agree or disagree with the person that actually is in it or is being sworn in today, I think out of respect for that office, again, the peaceful transfer of power, I will be in the rotunda today for inauguration.
Be honest with me, okay? What's your mood today? I mean, listen, you know me. I'm the anti-Trump conservative, right? So I'm like a unicorn without legs at this point. So, but for someone who's in the trenches for your party, trying to govern from the minority, how do you feel going into to another 4 years of Trump?
Well, look, I look at it in two ways. I think some opportunities that I'm looking for where we can work together. Some of the things that the president has said around pharmacy benefit managers and cracking down, creating more transparency, which would support our local pharmacists, potentially bring down the cost of prescription drugs. I support that. Maybe there are some places like that. The Farm Bill, getting that done, working together, bipartisan. I think that's something that maybe we can work together on. Workforce development. I'm looking for the places where we can find common ground, and I'm not giving up on that. Now, that being said, I am very concerned about some things going into this administration, and certainly we're going to see today with executive orders what some of those things are going to look like. I'm very concerned about some of the appointments that this incoming president administration has put forward, and some very real concerns I have around the experience level of some of these folks that have been put forward and are going through the Senate confirmation process on the expertise they might have to run some of these really large agencies, including our Department of Defense. I'm concerned about some of the rollbacks of some of the investments that I've been fighting and had some real success on getting achieved back home to help our clean energy transition, which have created a lot of union good paying jobs in central and southern Illinois. I'm also very concerned around some of the rhetoric I've seen on Social Security and cuts to Medicaid. So I'm looking at it in two ways. Are there opportunities for us to work together to get some things done? I'm always looking for those, but I do have some very real concerns around some of the things I've seen are going to be priorities of this new administration.
Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. All right, so you've heard the allegations against your party, right? That you're the ones for open borders who want illegals to flood in and give them all of our tax dollars. What should we be doing about the people who are in this country illegally? Because there are a lot here. It's probably not realistic to wrap them all up and send them home, but something has to be done, at least to some extent, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think we have to do something different on immigration. I mean, I very much in the last Congress and going into this Congress, I voted a lot with my Republican colleagues on securing the border, finding opportunities for us to further invest in securing the border, stop fentanyl from getting into this country. And I do think that for those that are here that are, undocumented, if they're criminals, if that happens to be the case, we don't want any criminal element or violent element within our communities, and they shouldn't be here. But that being said, I oppose very strongly the separation of families in this country. And that's something that I'm going to be paying very close attention to this week. But we have a very broken system as it relates to immigration. We have to do something different. We have to fix our broken asylum system for people that are looking to legally come into this country it takes decades to come in. And I hear from employers that they have labor shortages, that they need experts and expertise to come in to fill jobs that we're unable to fill. So there has to be a balance to this. But I very much agree with you, Patrick. We have to do something different on immigration.
Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski for another couple of minutes here on 92.7 WMAY. I'm interested in how Democrats are planning to, I don't want to say fix yourselves, right? Because certainly, I think we can look at either party and see that they're unfixable at this point. But that's certainly you guys have issues with message. I think we saw that through the campaign nationally. And I talked to our friend Bill Houlihan last week about there was a tweet from Ben Wickler, who's the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, who's running for the DNC chair. And he had a tweet where he's, using all of these abbreviations and we're going to build these coalitions and do all these things with words that people don't use, real people don't use. Democrats don't seem like they know how to talk to people who don't live in a city or a suburb. And how do you think, and this is a bigger picture than you, because we've talked about how you're handling your district, but how do Democrats reform their messaging moving into 26 and 28?
It's a great question, Patrick, and we have a lot of work to do, just to be honest. I mean, I represent a district, though, that I was able to outperform the top of the ticket by over 7 points. I was able to improve my margins from the last time I ran in every single county. And the reason I think I was able to do that was that I showed up and listened in all communities. And regardless of whether you agree with someone, a constituent or not, you need to show up and listen and meet people where they are. I think oftentimes the Democrats, we can expect people to meet us where we are. But in fact, that's not where everyone is. And so I think that we need to show up and listen. We need to stop telling people where they need to be and meet them where they are. And I think it's getting back to some common sense. And, I think working together, that's something I very much focused on. My district has about 180,000 people. I'll just give you this perspective. 180,000 voted for Kamala Harris. 150,000 voted for Donald Trump. So it's really important in a district like mine, and I think all across this country, that we come together and we find the places where we can agree. I think all of us want safe communities. All of us want good job opportunities. All of us want to see our communities thrive. So there's a lot of common interests, and I think we need to start really working on coming together on those issues where we can't agree. And I think if Democrats can get back to that, focusing on economic, working people's issues and how we're supporting working families, we'll start winning again.
All right, a couple of quick hitters for you, Congresswoman, before we let you go. And I know you got to get down to the Capitol before they lock the whole world down. So one, what should you do about TikTok?
Well, look, I voted to ban TikTok because I am very concerned about the ownership stake, the very large, the Chinese Communist Party owns TikTok right now, and it's very clear that they have access to our American citizens, our data. That is a national security threat. I'm very concerned about. I cannot tell, quite frankly, clearly what President-elect Donald Trump is going to do with this, but we need to be standing up to China. And so I really am very concerned. If they divest, this isn't about banning TikTok as an application. It's actually about them being divested from the Chinese Communist Party. And if that divestiture can happen, then TikTok can operate. And I would support that.
In what scenario can you vote to extend any level of tax cuts?
Well, I think tax cuts that focus and support working families, I'm always going to be in favor of. Providing middle-class tax relief, extending the child tax credit, which put money back in the pockets of working people that have children at home struggling with the cost of childcare. I'll always support that. The Trump tax plan last time dropped the corporate tax rate to 21%. I do not think that corporate America needs more of a tax break. It's working class tax cuts that I'm going to be supportive of.
All right. Finally, you may have an easier time with this than I do, and I could even say a few decent things. Say something nice about Donald Trump.
Well, look, I think, um, you know, I think that some of the issues that he's going to tackle around, helping potentially, I think PBMs is something I mentioned, pharmacy benefit managers, bringing down the cost of prescription drugs. If he's actually genuinely interested in doing that, I have legislation out there that's bipartisan that I hope he'll take up.
Congresswoman Nikki Budzinski, Democrat from Springfield, our guest here on 92.7 WMAY. Congresswoman, thanks for fitting us in this morning, and wish you the best in your second term, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Have a great day.
You too. It is 7:31. Time for the news here on 92.7 WMAY. Your dependable forecast for today, it's bitterly cold to start our day. 0 is our temperature right now. Wind chill 11 below. We're under a cold weather advisory until noon. Sunny today with a high getting up to 16. Wind chill values won't break 0 throughout the day. Winds around 20 miles an hour this afternoon. Some flurries this evening. Not anything to accumulate though. Sunny, cold tomorrow. High only getting up to 7. We'll be back up to 30 on Wednesday. It's 0 right now. Wind chill 11 below. It's 7:37 on 92.7 WMAY. Seven 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's morning news. Patrick Pfingsten here. Good morning. Always a pleasure to have some of you in my inbox. How dare I talk to our congresswoman who happens to be a Democrat? And that's not what that's supposed to be doing. Good stuff. Everything's working well this morning. Just like it should. All right, coming up in about 10 minutes, we'll talk to Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party, 819 this morning. We'll talk to Richard Porter, former Republican National Committee member for Illinois. I asked Budzinski about TikTok. And really, I mean, I've never had TikTok on my phone. I think it's Chinese spyware and wouldn't have anything to do with it anyway. And I don't dance for cameras. So nobody wants to see that anyway. So it's never really been something I've paid much attention to, but certainly the security concerns about who owns TikTok and where its backing comes from. TikTok had a humiliating defeat last week when the Supreme Court basically said you were going to have to go dark. And then Donald Trump essentially reversed it before he's even president, saying, I'm not going to enforce a congressional a law of the land, which is about par for the course with how Donald Trump feels about the law of the land. But although the new law took effect yesterday, President Biden fecklessly announced that he preemptively that he wouldn't enforce the ban triggered by the absence of a sale of TikTok to a U.S. owner. And then he essentially left the decision to Trump, who has no authority until noon today. All the while, Biden and Kamala Harris were putting out a stunt claiming the Equal Rights Amendment was now the law of the land, which it isn't, because if you failed Constitution class, you've got to have a certain number of states ratify a new constitutional amendment. So you can't just like pretend. Over the weekend, Trump announced on his Truth Social fake social media site that he will issue an executive order on Monday to extend the period of time before the law's prohibitions take effect so we can make a deal to protect our national security. But he can't. I mean, he's going to invoke a provision in the forced divestiture law, which allows for a one-time 90-day extension of its enforcement by the president. But the law is clear. The 90-day extension only applies if there is significant progress toward a sale and there are in place the relevant binding legal agreements to enable execution of such qualified divestiture during the extension period. Essentially, the extension option was inserted to provide the players some more room if a deal was basically in place and they just needed to hammer it out. It's satisfied by simply pointing to someone who said they want to buy TikTok, as investor Kevin O'Leary has done by offering $20 billion. In reality, every report on ByteDance, which is the parent company of TikTok in recent months, points to one conclusion: that the Chinese company's leaders spent every resource at their disposal litigating and propagandizing rather than engaging with any several prospective American buyers who want to buy is it a website or an app? I guess it's an app. Servers, what are you buying? You're not buying the dances. It's not just that there hasn't been significant progress toward a deal, because ByteDance, acting under orders from China's government, has declined to entertain any serious spin-off talks. By vowing to shut down rather than sell the app for what would likely be tens of billions of dollars, ByteDance is giving away the game. They're primarily interested in maintaining Chinese control over the app. Even if some legal argument or report about the sale talks can be mustered to justify the waiver or try to justify the waiver, the law is explicit that it's a one-time option. That's why Trump's going to be under pressure to consider issuing more expansive executive orders directing his administration not to enforce the law or certifying wrongly that the companies met the requirements that would prevent the ban from being triggered, which it hasn't. Or he tries to get Congress to pass a law repealing the forced sale, which any of this would be a grave mistake, because the outcome here is binary. Washington will either bow to Beijing's intransigence or demonstrate that it has the will to defend our nation's sovereignty from our primary geopolitical foe, even if American teenagers and other TikTok users get angry. Sorry, kids. Beijing surely knows that it's locked into a war of wills with Congress, which has staked out admirably hawkish grounds for the most part-ish on meeting the challenge posed by China's actions. Trump should follow the law passed with overwhelming bipartisan support in Congress and upheld by the Supreme Court, which rightly deferred to the extraordinarily congressional concern about the threat posed by TikTok's data collection. It's spyware on your phone. And then he should lean on China's government to bless a sale of TikTok. He must see through the lies from these executives about their independence from the Chinese government, which is why the matter came up during his call with Chinese President Xi last week. TikTok's fate will be decided in the Chinese leadership, not in some U.S. corporate subsidiary office. It should be the first item on his agenda for a series of overarching negotiations with China, because it is a significant national security concern if China really is using that app for spyware on American devices. 747, 92.7 WMAY. All right, 750, 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Pfingsten here. Good morning. Happy to have you with us. On Inauguration Day, Donald Trump takes the oath of office for the second time at 11 o'clock Central, noon Eastern. And one of those celebrating in D.C. this weekend, is Kathy Salvi, the chair of the Illinois Republican Party, former U.S. Senate candidate from Illinois. Kathy, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. So great to be with you, Patrick, and especially with such a festive, hopeful atmosphere here in Washington.
Is it festive and hopeful?
It absolutely is. People are super excited, chill out. You know, many millions of people have a part in electing President Trump. Each one of us, whether people made phone calls, did friend-to-friend letters, went up and walked in Wisconsin or Arizona or any one of the other swing states, or stayed at home in Illinois, spreading the message of America first. So each one of us have a stake in America's future. And so I'm thrilled to be here representing our state.
All right. So 4 years ago, Trump left office unwillingly, right? I mean, mostly unwillingly, after he had led this attack on the Capitol on January 6th. He did leave on the 20th non-violently, but
that could be your perspective, maybe some others. But I think that the truth has come out on what really happened there on January 6th. But let's look at January 20th, 2025. There is an atmosphere
but
here.
But does the past not inform the future here, Kathy?
Well, yes, it did. This abysmal 4 years, finally, we're done with it. I mean, this has been the most feckless, dangerous leadership in American history, what Biden and his administration has left us. And now there's a ray of hope that America is going to get back on her feet. And those people who skip out will miss America's greatest comeback. And I think that it's time that we restore pride in our country again.
Listen, I've made it abundantly clear that I've found the Biden term to be bad at a minimum, but certainly I've made it abundantly clear that I don't think Donald Trump should be president again. And that's, I mean, I have a hard time, and listen, Kathy and I know each other. I like Kathy a lot. I have a hard time seeing how you see something that I don't, or I see something that you don't see, or we're not seeing the same thing here, because the first term was chaos. He says whatever the hell he wants. He's a sociopath. He's a liar. He's a felon. I mean, what is the redeeming quality here that you and other Republicans are seeing?
You know, saving our nation begins today. If you look at the 400 days plus that Biden couldn't do a thing with our hostages in Israel and the Gaza Strip, and here it is. Not before he's even president, he's able to obtain a hostage release. This is historic. I expect that people, not only our stature internationally, will be much, much improved, as I've already seen, but Illinois families and Illinois workers will be well served again by this administration, where people are valued, the worker is valued, the family is valued. And I believe that President Trump and this administration have an understanding of what government should do and not meddle in the affairs of us. We'll have more power over our paychecks and more ability to raise our children and run our families the way they should be run. And I'm so thrilled to be part of this America First, Illinois and America First agenda.
Kathy Salvi is the chair of the Illinois Republican Party. She joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. Donald Trump did better in Illinois in 2024 than he did in 2020 or 2016. Though the number of votes this time around, I mean, I think he outdid 2020 by like 2,000 votes or something like that. So marginally better. The percentage increase came from Kamala Harris's share being significantly down from Biden's. What do you consider the improvement for Trump in Illinois? Was it the Democrats turned voters off? Because it's not like Trump brought in a bunch of new voters.
Failed Democrat policies. People are waking up. And squarely, you're right, 17-point loss in 2016, 17-point. But here we had a 10-point margin here in 2024. People are waking up. And I'm thrilled to see the building of the Illinois Republican Party. I should say 77,000 low propensity Republican voters took early ballots. 202,000 low propensity Republican voters voted early. And our Get Out the Vote effort touched 6.9 million low propensity Republicans throughout the entire 40-day voting cycle. So I've always said that the party that does a better job at capturing their voters' votes in that 40-day period will win the election. It's just mathematical. And I'm really proud to see that not only here in Illinois, we've improved tremendously, but nationwide, we won every single one of the swing states because of that strategy. So you heard President Trump say time and time again, we got to make it too big to rig. Well, I think the American people have spoken, and certainly the Illinois voters contributed greatly to the popular vote.
Then why didn't Illinois Republicans make gains down ticket? No congressional races were significantly competitive. Of the legislative races, nothing flipped. You know, Republicans targeted a few, Democrats targeted a few. Everything stayed the same. Sure, gerrymandering plays a role in those things. Money plays a role in those things. But if Trump's bringing in all these new low propensity voters that you say that he was, why didn't they vote for Republicans down ticket?
Two things. First of all, you said it right there when you said everything stayed the same. We held on to our seats, and that was huge, especially being enormously outspent. But as Michael Whatley, the chair of the RNC, who was just reelected, reminded everybody, we could have the best candidates in the world, the most solid positions. But if you don't have money in order to back that message, then your candidates will lose. And so what I see time and time again is that we need to keep building the war chest. And I think now Illinois is on the map.
Well, then, Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party, how do you and Tony McCombie and John Curran, how do you guys raise money to compete with the billionaire governor, the loaded unions who are packing the coffers of Democrats in the state? How do you raise enough money to compete?
Well, look what's happened already. Have you seen any of those city council meetings? I think that the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, is doing a good job for us. People are furious at those elected Democrat leaders who are pushing, doubling down on crazy, leftist policies. And I think that they're absolutely deaf to what the voters really want and need. We've got crime-ridden streets. We've got less money in our paycheck. People are taking 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. So how do we inform them? We keep doing what we're doing and we ramp it up. Since 2019, the Illinois Republican Party has tripled its fundraising, and I expect it to continue in that direction. And then if I could make this pitch, and I hope you're there, April 25th, 2025, we're going to have our gala at the Renaissance in Schaumburg. Expect an amazing, amazing night. It's our Illinois Republican Party gala, and I expect it to be really a sellout, as it was last year. It was a sellout, a couple months ahead of time. So be sure to be there, Patrick. It'll be an amazing opportunity for you to see an alive and vibrant Republican Party made up of mom and dads and regular folk.
I don't know if you've noticed, Kathy, I'm not the most popular person among the Republican Party in the state anymore.
Well,
But
you can work on that. You got to be careful with your bias. Come on board.
my bias is the truth, Kathy. All right, before I let you go, I made Nikki Budzinski say something nice about Donald Trump. So be honest with me here. In under a minute, what are your concerns? What do you fear Donald Trump could do wrong in this term?
Well, my concerns are that people have to look at the half full cup. Sure, we've got a lot of work ahead of us.
All right, that's a non-answer.
But no. When people, when lawmakers and when individuals always look at, you do 9 things right and 1 thing wrong, and you harp with the 1 thing wrong or that could have been proved, it takes the morale, it takes the wind out of your lungs. And I think what would help in not only those in the media, but those on the street, is if we try to look at what we have ahead of us, this opportunity, and to try to give each other the benefit of a fresh new day and say, well, that might not have worked, but we're going to try this. And I think meritocracy should be something that we go after in our workers in the federal and the state government. People should do what they are expected to do, what they're hired to do. And if they don't, then they should be let go. It's just common sense. And there's no private business that would stay afloat if we didn't have that attitude. So I'm excited about Illinois. I'm excited about this new administration, and I expect all of us will be benefited, Republican, Democrat, and all people of all stripes and sizes. So there's my answer for you, okay?
Kathy Salvi, chair of the Illinois Republican Party, our guest here on 92.7 WMAY. Kathy, enjoy the festivities in D.C., and thanks for taking some time with us this morning.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Look forward to coming back.
Thanks, Kathy. It is 8 o'clock. Time for the news on 92.7 WMAY. It's 810 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Pfingsten here on Inauguration Day, January 20th. Donald Trump takes the oath of office a little after 11 o'clock Central this morning, noon Eastern Time. And before we look ahead, I think it's important that we look back for a moment. Richard Porter, the former Illinois Republican Party's national committeeman, former member of the Republican National Committee, joins us in about 8 minutes. But I think before we go there, we look into the failures of the Biden administration. The debate over Biden's legacy will continue well beyond the end of his presidency today. But one view is gaining some consensus that few presidents have used the bully pulpit of the Oval Office to less effect. And certainly the decline in his capacity that even if you were like me and didn't think it was as bad as maybe some of the far right were accusing, it certainly became clear after last June, right? Biden was long known as someone very comfortable in the spotlight during his long pursuit of the White House. It's all he ever wanted. He almost seemed allergic to wielding the powers of the office once he finally got there. Some of it was out of his control. He took over during the pandemic, which kept him largely bound to the White House during his first year. But much of his reticence was dictated both by him and his aides. It wasn't just that his growing infirmities compelled him to do fewer interviews, fewer primetime speeches, conduct less travel, take fewer political risks. It was that he preferred this carrot heavy, stick light, confrontation averse approach as a matter of governance and personality. He liked wooing lawmakers domestically and bolstering allies internationally more than browbeating opponents or outwardly confronting antagonists. The approach had its successes both home and abroad, but as Democrats are bracing for the Trump era, many are looking back with frustration and opportunities lost, the wasted carrots and the sticks left unused. There's perhaps no better illustration than this of his approach to handling the Israel-Hamas war. The ceasefire deal announced over the weekend, or finally into effect over the weekend, was first outlined by Biden back in the spring. And in the intervening months, his foreign policy team tried to get the Netanyahu government and Hamas leadership to embrace it. But it was reportedly Trump's victory and Trump's demands of both Israel and the neighboring Arab nations that a hostage deal be completed expeditiously that forced both parties to sign a pact. The Washington Post quoted a diplomat as saying it was the first time there had been real pressure on the Israeli side to accept a deal. When Biden felt he couldn't apply that same pressure is a question, or why he couldn't apply that pressure is a question that will hang over his presidency in the Middle East itself. But part of the explanation may simply be that it wasn't in his character to put the screws on. The plan for House leadership was for Biden to kind of be their pep talker in chief, talk to members, get them to follow along to pass infrastructure bills, tackle his Build Back Better agenda. It was sort of his way. The hope was that he would be their leader, their face, their coach, their go-getter, and he never did it, because and few expected like the Democrats would actually cross their own president. He just didn't make any asks. He couldn't bring himself to put Democrats on the spot. And he there was no demand from him to get things done, whether it was with Republicans in charge or Democrats in charge. Biden was never rewarded politically for any of the things he accomplished, either legislatively or in the world of PR. Teamsters, declined to endorse him. His student debt thing, even though it was bankrupting everybody else, didn't win him younger voters. Manufacturing jobs, which he tried to take credit for, didn't make any inroads there. He didn't sell an agenda, and he left the door open for Trump to strike back at what Biden had or hadn't done. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And certainly I think the infirmity probably played a big role, because he was never the same guy that we thought he was, even dating back to 2020. Something happened. And I always had higher hopes for a Biden administration. Always felt like he could be a moderating figure in our politics. But certainly it turned out to be a weak and feckless and sad 4 years. And here we are now. It's 8:17, 92.7 WMAY. It's 8:19, 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's morning news. 1 degree above zero here in the capital city. But it's too cold in Washington to have an outdoor inauguration. Put the Florida men in charge, and they're all scared of the cold. See how it is. All right, let's talk some more about what's happening in Washington and some outlooks for the administration. Richard Porter, a former member of the Republican National Committee for Illinois, joins us this morning from Washington. How are you, Richard?
I'm good, thank you, Patrick. How are you?
Come on, you're a diehard Midwesterner. Like it's not too cold for this, is it?
Well, I mean, I think you could do it, but can you imagine playing the trombone or the trumpet when it's 10 degrees? Marching in a parade. I just don't. I think it was actually the better part of prudence for him to move it indoors. But Honestly, I feel badly for him because this is such an epic win. He should have that moment of looking out over the sea of faces out towards the Washington Monument as an inspiration for starting his new term. So I feel like we're missing a moment there, which is a shame.
I'm not out there, so I don't know how many people are around town or anything like that at the moment. But the I don't know if you want to call them the haters, but the skeptics at least said, well, they're doing this because they're afraid that the mall would look empty, and you couldn't even pull a Sean Spicer lie about the largest crowd size ever sort of thing. What is the crowd like out there this weekend?
Oh, it's huge and it is excited. I mean, I was standing in the rain for 45 minutes yesterday. It was, probably, I don't know, 28 degrees, raining, sleeting, and the people were chanting and cheering. The streets were packed, trying to get into the rally, and they were standing there for hours just trying to get in to the Capital One Center for the great MAGA rally that was the kind of on inauguration eve. So believe me, this crowd is not daunted. I really do think it's a question of safety for people that, if you're outside for 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours even, in the cold and you didn't dress properly, you can get some, you get some frostbite. So, I mean, it is about 10 degrees right about now in DC. So it's not 1 below, it's not Springfield cold, but, it's still plenty cold enough. And I think the crowd would have been huge. I think there's plenty of people here that are disappointed they didn't have a chance to see that moment, but they're making the most of it.
Richard Porter, former Republican National Committeeman from Illinois, joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. All right, so we've heard. I mean, you and I have argued about this on the air and on my podcast and all that before of what Trump has done to the Illinois Republican Party. And certainly, I think it's a negative. You think it's a positive. But certainly the Republican Party today does not look at all like the Republican Party did in, say, 2012 when Mitt Romney was the nominee, the last pre-Trump Republican nominee. Why is the Republican Party in better shape today than it was then, other than winning?
Look, I think, there's been a trade with some voters. It's a less professional party, and it's more of a scrappy party. It's more of the working men and women party. So I think it is, the professionals have become, frankly, they collaborate a little bit too much with people that are Marxists and the true kind of fighting Americans. Look at who volunteers for the military, right? It's not the kids in the northern suburbs. It's the kids living in Springfield and outside of Springfield. And so I think that, we're a party that's very much in touch with America and Americans' roots. And I think as a result of that, there's a lot of passion and enthusiasm. It's, it's not kind of a cool, reserved party. It is a passionate fighting party.
You're primed to answer this, I think, just because of your background. You worked for H.W. Bush, which folks may not know, and obviously as a professional and attorney from the suburbs. What changed that this was the country club party, right? That for better or worse, right? The moderate-ish, business chamber sort of party to what is now a populist, personality driven party. What changed inside the heart of the GOP?
Well, I think that we've always been the party on the right, and of course the cultural institutions have all been captured by the left. And so I think people that are in the professions, they are people that have gotten ahead by doing what they're told. The good doobies that get in line in first grade and they do what the teacher tells them to do in 7th grade. And so they're good followers. And I think what happened is, even though they're conservative, they always feel a little guilty about their conservatism. They're a little shy about their conservatism. And they tend to trim who they are and what they say in order to make kind of the authority figures in our society more happy. And I think what you find is the Trump voter, the Trump Republican Party, is much more feisty. Is not going to be, kind of sit quietly and do the nice thing just because they're told something that's obviously untrue. I mean, so the cultural elements of this campaign are so important to this. The Republican Party of today knows the difference between a man and a woman. And what's interesting is the Democratic Party, of course, has completely, lost touch with that reality. and you have the cultural, I guess, compromisers in the suburbs who, don't really want to say that because they don't want to seem rude. They don't want to be mean to someone by saying the obvious, which is the man can't become a woman. But I think that there is a sort of a sense of liberation and freedom in being able to speak the truth and stand up to cultural institutions that have increasingly become out of touch with reality. So I do think that the populist Republican Party is a much more real party, and that the real party was confronting the party of imaginary problems and imaginary solutions. And I think that that's the real power of it. We're coming back in touch with America. We got our feet on the ground. And I think it's really going to be a great refreshing of what America is, having this Trump administration.
Are you supportive, Richard, of the tariff plan from the soon-to-be president? Certainly, you're a smart dude, and you know these economic issues quite well. You know that when tariffs go into effect, it's consumers that are paying those tariffs, not foreign countries. So how do you justify that idea from the Trump administration or future Trump administration when we know just simply basic economics who's going to be paying this and that it's probably going to increase inflation even more?
Well, the thing to realize about the tariffs is that most of them won't go into effect. They're going to be used as a lever to get other countries to start working towards our benefit. One of the things that the United States is, the change, I think, in foreign policy, and I think the tariff plan is really part and parcel of this, is that, we've been sort of a genial giant. We've been using, allowing other countries to use us, the Marshall Plan being the perfect example of that, where we did a handout, hand up, helping other countries. That was great for the, large part of the post-war period. But over the last 7 years, they've all caught up. And to some extent, there's a shift, which is to say that, look, we should be getting our due. We should be getting free trade. If you're going to, thumb your nose at us, we're going to use our tariffs to make sure you don't thumb our nose at us. If you refuse to take back the immigrants that came here illegally, when we send them back, well, we're going to use tariffs and other tools to make sure that you'll work with us. So the tariffs are really it's like a high, hard one in baseball, right? It's sort of like, here I am, don't mess with me. You can have a fair shot, but don't mess with the giant. And I think that's, Teddy Roosevelt used to say, walk softly and carry a big stick. Donald Trump knows America has a big stick. He's just not one to walk softly, right? Or talk softly.
Or be a bull in a china shop, which he can often be, as you and I both know. So, all right, let me ask you this. What do you expect to hear today? Is it going to be a repeat of American Carnage from 8 years ago, or is it going to be a softer, nicer, different sounding Donald Trump influenced by, I don't want to call her moderate, but definitely the less combative Susie Wiles?
No, you're going to see Donald Trump as Donald Trump. I think he feels fully empowered to be himself. This is the great thing about this election. It's truly a remarkable thing, Patrick, to think about what he overcame to be here. And there's now an acceptance of his presidency in a way that there never was. At this time, 8 years ago, the Capitol was filled with protesters with pink hats, and they were thumbing their nose. There were cars burning in the streets here. I saw it. It was nasty. And now people understand that there's been a real shift. And so Donald Trump will assert strongly the views that brought him to the White House. This is a changing of the guard. We're going to clean out the swamp. We're going to reverse DEI. We're going to stop the cultural nonsense. We're going to bring America back, and we're going to bring it back strong. And he's going to have a strong message. It's not going to be a kinder, gentler message. It's going to be America's back, and we're strong, and don't mess with us.
All right, Richard Porter, before we let you go, obviously there are some rumors and speculation about your political future, whether you may or may not run for governor next year. And I know you're not going to give me an answer on that yet, and someday you will. But let's frame it this way. As a guy who is openly supportive of Donald Trump, whether it's you or Aaron Del Mar or Darren Bailey or whoever it might be, how does that full embrace of Donald Trump affect a future Republican nominee for governor in a state where Donald Trump has now lost 3 times in a row?
Well, the only way you win as a Republican is that the Republican Party unified. And so it's very important for whatever candidate emerges to be the leader of the party in Illinois. They need to be someone that's fully in sync with where the party is today. So I think that's essential. And the next thing is we have to demonstrate the success and the strength of this approach. So look, it's often the case that in the election, after first 2 years of administration, that the party in power takes a shellacking. But there are times when the party in power does a nice job and really delivers for the people, then instead there's a stronger shift in that direction. Patrick, think about the fact he won this election with 95% negative press. If he does a decent job and he gets, moderately good press, the support for him will go through
He
the
gets
roof.
bad press because he says crazy stuff, Richard.
He gets bad press because people like to, clutch their pearls and
Oh, my
gasp.
Lord.
He says things all the time that people say to each other in a restaurant, in a bar, on a bus. That's the way people are. He's a normal guy, and people love that about him. He's not fake or phony. That's the reality. And so I think, look, being real is a good thing. Being who you really are is a good thing. And I think that Trump will be a success. I think he understands the job now in a way he didn't 4 years ago. And I think he's going to have a strong team. So knock on wood, if we get out to a strong start and the country responds well to it, I think we could have a good election cycle 2 years from now, Patrick. I really do.
We're going to leave it at that. Richard Porter, former Republican National Committeeman. Enjoyed the festivities today, Richard. Appreciate the time as always.
All right, man. Have a great day.
We'll talk to you soon. It is 8:32. Time for the news on 92.7 WMAY. Porter, the former Republican National Committeeman for Illinois, for joining us before the news. Done talking inauguration for now. Let's talk college football. Our friend Bob Asmussen from the Champaign News-Gazette has been writing about college football for what, about 100 years, Bob? Or
40.
That's Tate.
40. I'm like 40 or so, 40 years. 35 here.
How does a guy who's 35 been writing about college football for 40 years?
It's hard to believe. I was so good at age one. And I went downhill from age one. So
there you go. Bob Asmussen from the Champaign News-Gazette joins us to talk about the college football natty tonight, Ohio State and Notre Dame. I guess before we get into the game itself, Bob, thoughts on how the first 12-team playoff has gone?
it's been, to me, and I'm probably in the minority here, it's been awesome. It's. I know not all the games obviously have not been competitive, and that was good to be expected. But the idea is the home games, the way that it's the access, everything about it is great. So it's what I hoped it would be. I think there's changes that can make it better. I think I would add 4 teams, make it 16, and play all the first round games at home. 8 first round games at home. Imagine Illinois hosting a game in the playoffs. I mean, that'd be the most awesome thing ever. So I'm really, really excited about how this worked out. I wish it had happened 40 years ago, but it didn't. So we're here. We're finally got here. We're where we should be. So I'm totally loving the thing. I really do.
It's interesting. People always talk about, or people have talked about the blowouts in that first round where, you know, they don't have that in the NFL. Well, they do. The Bills beat the Broncos 31-7. The Texans won by 20. The Ravens won by 2 touchdowns. The Rams pounded the Vikings. I mean, you only had one good game that first weekend in the NFL playoffs, in that Commanders Buccaneers game that was a field goal win. I mean, it's not that out of the realm of understanding that it's similar to the NFL playoffs that way. I'm totally with you though on more campus games. Those were awesome.
Oh, they're great. And historically, these games, when they were just the semifinals, you know, before the 12-teamer, there were a lot of blowouts there too. So we have to accept that. I remember a title game when somebody scored 60 points. So that happens. So I think you're right. Comparison to an NFL playoff, which everybody acknowledges is the best brand of football. But to me, college football is so much better. And those home games are just dynamic. And more of them. I think what I would do, and they probably won't do this immediately, I would make the first round and second round quarterfinals at home. I think that'd be better, save fans a lot of money on travel. So I think it's a great idea. And I think we're going to see some changes, probably some tweaking early and then some major changes later on.
Bob Asmussen from the Champaign News-Gazette joins us here on 92.7 WMAY. Talked about the college football playoff and the national championship game tonight, which thankfully will be a distraction. If you don't want to watch political stuff tonight, you can go watch a football game. Thank God for that, because Lord knows I'm going to need it. So, all right, let's talk Ohio State. They were dead men walking. I guess it's collective. After the Michigan game, when they lost out of the blue, looked terrible. Weren't in the Big Ten championship game, and have since then started playing like the team with the $20 million roster. What flipped that switch, Bob?
Well, I think all the criticism helped. I think that helped. So they got beat up at home, which is kind of weird to me. I think Illinois was like 12-1, and they lost a tough game to Michigan, their rival, by 3. People would probably not jump and be ready to, but the people there were they were over the edge in terms of how devastated they were. So, but I think the team they're talented. That's the first thing. They're so good. There's preseason, I had them number 1. It didn't move them until they lost by a point to Oregon. So they're really, they have more talent than any team in the country by far to me. So that was part of it. The coaching they did a great job, both offensively, defensively. They really top people at the coordinator spots. I just think they found a little edge there, and it's helped. They carried them through. The good thing here, the 10-day breaks between rounds is kind of critical, because if you think about it, after you have a big game like they did against Tennessee, it takes about a couple of days to recover from getting beat up. But then you have a couple of days to do that, and then another week to prepare. It's kind of the timing is perfect for them. And Ryan Day is a fantastic coach. great staff, and then the players are so good. So I just think they play like they should. Honestly, they're playing where where they should be.
And then there's Notre Dame, who obviously has a little bit of a following here in the Springfield area,
Right.
certainly with the SHG connection, that sort of thing. But nationally, there's, and really throughout the rest of the state, there's been certainly a level of vitriol or at least disdain toward Notre Dame over the years. Brian Kelly and his very punchable face didn't help that. It didn't help that perception. Marcus Freeman has made Notre Dame likable, Bob. How the hell has that happened?
Because first of all, I think he's a good guy. And that's the main thing. He's a great coach. He's a great recruiter. And I told somebody maybe 6-7 years ago when Marcus Freeman was just getting started, I think it was DC and Cincinnati. You saw he was a young guy, played at Ohio State, was a linebacker there. I told somebody Illinois should hire him as their head coach. This is before they hired Bielema. They said they should hire that guy as head coach. Now, he probably wouldn't have come, but you got to make a bid for him. That guy was clearly going to be not just good, but a star. He's likable. He's respectful. He understands where he is. He's obviously a great recruiter. That's just huge. I don't know how a guy like him comes to your house, talks to you about Notre Dame with the passion he has, and you don't come there. Like I can't imagine saying no to the guy. So I think is there as long as they got him, they're in good shape. And
what's the over under on number of shots on the broadcast tonight of him in his Ohio State jersey?
Probably a few. Yeah, definitely some of those. But that's okay. And people have speculated if Ryan Day were to move on, which I think is silly. If he were to move on, that Ohio State would go after Coach Freeman. I don't think that'd make any sense at all for him to make that move. He's in a place right now where he can win at a high level. So I don't know why he moved from that set of trouble to the Ohio State set of trouble. And the money would be similar. So I'm sure why leave happy is always my answer to that question. So I think he should stay in Notre Dame for the next 15, 20 years and become the next Rockney, which he has the chance to do.
So here's why I think Ohio State's going to win. Obviously, they're the better team. I think everyone can say that they're the best roster in the country.
Right.
The problem for Notre Dame is just that they're a mash unit at this point. Like they are so beat up. They've got second and third stringers playing in a lot of key positions. It just feels like they are completely out of gas and bodies to compete. Do you agree with that?
100%. I think when they lost their defensive lineman, who was really, really great player, I watched them pretty much every game. He's so good. When he got hurt and banged up and lost for the year, that was critical because that's one guy you got to replace with somebody who's not nearly as good in this case. So yes, I think they've held on. They played a great game against Georgia. I mean, that was really terrific how they played. And then they got a little bit lucky against Penn State, and that happens too. They played Penn State, right? Yeah, Penn State. I can't remember who played who, but yeah. So they're doing well, but they're out of gas. Correct. And I just think if they get behind early in this game, which I expect they will, it'll be hard for them to hang on. But they have a puncher's chance because they could turn the ball over from Ohio State 4 times. That could happen. Then they'll have a chance. But that's to me the only way they win. Have to win a turnover margin by 4. That's the only way Ohio State loses. And I don't think that'll happen.
Bob Osmundson, before we let you go, let's look ahead to the fall of 2025. Illinois football will be in the conversation for the college football playoff. True or false?
Absolutely true. Right now, I have them in right now.
Wow.
Yeah. They're that good. My preseason's top 10 will be out tomorrow or maybe Wednesday. They'll be my top 10 preseason next year.
And still maybe like 6th in the Big Ten.
Well, I think 4 behind Penn State, Ohio State, and Oregon. But they're still 4th in Big Ten is top 10 in the country. So that's pretty good deal. He's got the thing rolling. They got a lot of players. They got most of the team back, and they got a schedule that's winnable except Ohio State's coming to town, which I'm all for that anyway. So I think they're going to have a nice season next year. Will they win 10 games again? Probably, or maybe. And if they do, they're in playoffs. So
USC and Ohio State in Champaign next fall. Seems
pretty
like so
cool.
much fun.
How awesome is that? That's
Seems
pretty cool.
like so much fun.
Although,
Bob Osmondson from the Champaign News Gazette. Enjoyed the game tonight. Thanks for chatting football throughout the year with us, and thankfully we've avoided conversation about Illinois basketball today because they give me heartburn.
There you go.
So Bob, I appreciate it, my friend. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye bye.
It's 8:50 here on 92.7 WMAY. (8:53) 92.7 WMAY, Springfield's Morning News. Patrick Pfingsten here for final few minutes of our program today. Lots of political talk on our show today with the inauguration at 11 o'clock Central, with Trump taking the oath of office at 11. Then I'm assuming that they've canceled the parade as well. If it's too cold now, I'm sure that they're gonna cancel the parade as well. So we probably won't see a lot of action after the rotunda, which, there hasn't been one moved indoors since 1985. Reagan's second inaugural. I was looking at some photos from that, and it was interesting because it was really very makeshift. A small lectern, a small podium, and a regular presidential lectern on the in the middle of the rotunda with a large group of people around him. There's a pretty famous photo of Reagan taking the oath with his wife Nancy, and a just slew of people standing around, which is certainly going to be different than we're used to seeing. We haven't now really had a normal one since 2016. So they're moving it inside due to dangerously low temperatures. Let's look again at what Washington's weather is, because it's not that bad compared to the one below we're seeing. It's 28 air temp, wind chill 21. I think the wind chill for Obama in 2009 was 28. Was it the wind chill at 20? Yeah, I think the wind chill was 28 for Obama in 2009. And they still toughed it out. See all these Florida people moving up north. Oh, it's too cold for us because it's below 50. And I think there's going to be some wind and certainly there was a little snow as well. But the rotunda is obviously one of the more beautiful places in the Capitol with the interior view of the dome, and it's going to be it's certainly a different look, but a beautiful look. Normally, the rotunda used for congressional ceremonies, celebrations, a tourist spot inside the Capitol for those doing the tours and that sort of thing. They had the casket of Jimmy Carter in the in line and state in the rotunda a couple of weeks ago now. Apparently, Capital One Arena, which is the arena for the Wizards and the Capitals, will be open to the public to watch the ceremony. And he said he'll join the crowd after he's sworn in. The arena will host the parade. It can fit about 20,000 people, a fraction of those expected for the inauguration. Dignitaries and other VIP guests will be brought into the rotunda, but space will be extremely limited. Nikki Budzinski, the congresswoman, said she's still going to be able to get in, but our friend Tom LoBianco, the reporter, said most of the congressional press passes have been canceled by the Joint Congressional Committee on Inaugural Ceremonies. So it's certainly this was Trump's call. This wasn't Capitol Police. This wasn't Secret Service. This wasn't the Joint Committee's decision. It was Trump's. And a rotunda plan had been under consideration for months. CNN first reported when Reagan took office in the rotunda in 1985. It was 7 degrees outside with wind chills below zero. Those conditions forced organizers to move the ceremony indoors. The rotunda was packed with standing room only available for VIPs. I'm sure it's going to look a lot like that today. Reagan was actually sworn in one day before the January 21st festivities on January 20th. Since January 20th fell on a Sunday, they never actually do the inauguration on a Sunday. They'll swear them in privately on Sunday afternoon and then do the public one on the 21st. Chief Justice Warren Burger administered the oath of office to Reagan on both days. In May of that year, many of the high school marching bands that had been scheduled to perform in the inaugural parade played at Walt Disney World's Epcot, and Reagan spoke there. So I think they're going to try and recreate the parade inside the Capital One Arena today, and certainly the tone of his speech is going to be a big part of this. Is it going to be the American carnage from 8 years ago, or is it going to be a different tone? Is it going to be a more optimistic tone, a more forward-looking tone? We don't really know. We don't really know what to expect. Other than he said that he's planning to sign roughly 100 executive orders in the first few days of his presidency, and a bunch of those coming within a couple of hours of being sworn in today. Federal workplace rules and the bureaucracy, border things, rolling back DEI, those sort of things. So we'll keep an eye on it through the day, and you'll certainly hear from us on it tomorrow. Thanks to Tom LoBianco, to Nikki Budzinski, to Kathy Salvi from the Illinois Republican Party, and to Richard Porter, as well as Bob Osmondson from the Champaign News-Gazette. We'll try and do better tomorrow. It's 9 o'clock here on 92.7 WMAY in Springfield.